I drove before. I drove almost every single day after, every morning and every afternoon. My passion, not just for transportation, my passion for downtown.
There's only a few cities across the country that are doing that, but the early indicators from the data coming back is that it can significantly reduce our travel time.
The state in general is really discouraging people in their cars. Live, work, Corona. We want people to live, work, play here in Corona.
We're already beating our neighbors regionally.
And that major leap forward, we're going to start seeing in 2025, and we're so excited.
We hope this pays off big.
Welcome to the Inner Circle podcast. I'm Jacob Ellis, Corona City Manager. Today we're going to be talking about transportation, streets, as well as a little bit about traffic. And we are joined by Corona City Council Member Wes Speake from District 5. Council Member, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jacob. My favorite topic.
It is. We know that. So Council Member, you've been a transportation advocate for quite some time. So what initially got you interested in this topic?
I think if you go back to 2017, really even before that, 2015, when the 91 project was, getting started, we saw how, not only construction, but projects that aren't fully developed and fully baked really impact the city. So it garnered my involvement with the Greater Corona Traffic Alliance. We banded together with a group of residents and really petitioned and lobbied our county representatives, Caltrans, city representatives, other cities in support of building an auxiliary lane, an additional auxiliary lane on the 91 freeway, and went from basically being a sketch on a napkin at a lovely Corona restaurant to an actual section of the freeway in 3 years, which is lightning fast in any way, shape, or form to go, from a design to not only construction, but to have operational in 3 years is, it really drove my passion for it. I see that, the lifeblood of a city is being able to move. So if you don't have that, you don't have a very cohesive and a very a functioning city. So it's really important to me, and really important to make sure that we know that residents don't just exist in the city of Corona; they exist outside. There are folks that pass through our city, and we want them to do so in the most positive way to us as possible.
I love it. What a testament to grassroots and resident involvement, that by getting together, and you at the time as a resident, weren't on council at the time, worked with other residents to make something come to pass that is now in effect. Councilmember, I'm sure you hear from residents about traffic fairly often. Is that true?
Yes, every day.
What are some of the main issues that people bring up with you when they're talking about? Is it congestion? Is it road quality? What are you hearing most about?
It's a combination of things. I think that traffic and congestion and transportation in general is very individual. So what is affecting you that moment is what you care about. So if you can't get to pick up your kids from school, you can't get on the freeway, you're stuck at a red light, or you hit a pothole, that's your most important concern. That's the thing that you care about, and you want there to be an answer for, or B, a plan to fix.
Yeah. I know that we get calls from on a pretty regular basis about those same issues, and we always encourage residents to use ClickFix. Fix. Great way to get out there and report potholes. We have really quick turnaround time for that. But a lot of those issues that we do hear from residents about are about bigger issues that you connect with residents on a regular basis about the big picture of how do we move people and goods and services throughout our city and the Inland Empire. So let's talk about this 10-year pavement management plan. Why was it the council decided to do that?
Well, first of all, having a long-term plan for anything is best practice. You don't want to wake up every morning and go, hey, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to get the place A or place B? So having a cohesive plan that you plan forward. So it was really important to put forward a 10-year plan to address those issues throughout the city. So, one of those calls that I get occasionally is someone says, my street has never been paved and I know it's not true, but at the same time, I can tell them with a 10-year plan when your street is going to get paved. And really the pavement is the visual representation of how well a city is funded, how well a city is functioning. If you see, a lot of potholes, or as my friends in the public works would say, alligator street, that's not a good thing. It shows you there's really a disconnect between maintenance and what people want. And frankly, I'll tell you, when my wife hits a pothole, I know about it.
You hear about that?
Yes, she
We need
does.
feedback.
She tells me immediately, Wes, there is a pothole and it's on California, and I pulled over and took a picture, and I instruct her, just like I do with all residents. C-Click Fix is a wonderful tool, and staff is really good about getting back to people. So having a good 10-year plan is frankly, it's like the lawn in your front yard. If you're showing you have weeds and you have dirt, and you don't have a pretty place to bet $10 the inside's probably not going to be great either. So, I was glad to see that and that go forward, and happy to support it.
Yeah, I love it. So talking about pavement condition, this past year, our city invested considerable funding with council support in our downtown. And so the downtown has been repaved, and to the extent that I hear from residents, it's been in maybe beyond their memory of the last time they remember when the whole downtown saw that kind of reinvestment. So maybe just to follow up on that, why did the city decide to invest in this in the downtown?
Well, this is part of a larger plan. One is that we're looking at revitalizing our downtown. We have a downtown revitalization plan. And how else do you revitalize? By having your pavement be top notch. And that's not just the places where, everybody drives down, Main, 6th. It's, 7th Street. It's 4th Street. It's 3rd Street. Those streets all being done at the same time was really impactful. Not just from the standpoint of a smooth ride, but that look and that feel, driving down Grand, coming onto Grand from Main Street, and turning onto that street and seeing that beautiful flat pavement that just gives that just extra special oomph that I think that will really help perpetuate and accelerate the where we're going downtown.
I love it. Now, one feature of our downtown pavement management has been some restriping on 6th Street. So I know that's a topic that we hear from people about from time to time. Let's talk about that for a minute. So why did the city decide to restripe 6th Street?
So one of the complaints that, people mention is that, we put this extra lane there for bikes, and this is all about bike lanes and road diets. And yes, partially true. It is about road diets, about slowing people down and diverting traffic. That's really pass-through traffic onto streets that can handle it. And, we're very fortunate having a perfect circle, which, if there's any businesses out there that are looking to trademark that name and open up a restaurant called the Perfect Circle, you have my permission. You did. So I think with having a Grand that connects to both and perfect outlets for people to take in both directions, depending on where they're going, it does two things. One, it allows still for free travel. And at the same time, it slows traffic down in the downtown, where we're trying to get people to have a walkable experience, have that experience where they can, sit outside and walk between locations. And you're not necessarily going to be really comfortable walking next to a road where people are going, 40, 50 miles an hour, 8 feet from you.
It's a great point. So that's a good segue into that long-term vision for the downtown. How does the restriping and this new traffic pattern sort of set the stage for what we are looking for in our downtown as part of our revitalization effort?
I'd say the most important thing is that we've been, I think in the past, the city took this plan of we're going to plan it. We're gonna write a bunch of documents, and we're gonna stick them in a shelf somewhere, and then we're gonna go out and ask people, hey, do you want to invest here? Instead, we're showing them that we're investing here. We're taking a chance. We're showing you that we're serious about this, and that we want not only our residents to want to come back downtown, and they do. There's this like crazy lean to want to come back to downtown, and I see it all the time. But it's going to tell folks that aren't as familiar with Corona that they can come and invest here, and it sets the stage. So the way the paving looks in the entire circle, the way that 6th Street is being restriped. And yes, we know it's been a tough change. And, I think I know that you didn't coin this, but I've heard this from you many, many times. There's two things that people hate is change and when things don't change. So we're hoping that that this is going to pay off big. We are investing in to make sure it pays off big. And we think, like I said, this sets the stage for us going forward. We hope this pays off big.
So, Councilmember, what about those green bike lanes? Can we get questions about that? I know you've had questions about that. How do those work for people that are listening and wondering?
They're just a place that a bike can go. It doesn't mean they're exclusively for bikes. It just means that a bike can travel there. And the example I give people is on Grand, where you see this green bike lane, and they're throughout the country. In California, you see them more and more now. It's one of those interesting things when you see a new car and you go, hey, that's a really cool car. And then all of a sudden you see it everywhere. And this is the same with these green bike lanes. Now that, I hadn't remembered seeing them. And then all of a sudden now I see them everywhere. And really all they are is just an advisory to folks that are driving that there could be somebody on a bike. It doesn't mean they have to stay out of it. And the same thing, we don't want bicycles riding on the sidewalks. It's dangerous. We want them riding, in lanes where they have free travel.
Love it. So cars, you can drive on those lanes. Cyclists, you're also welcome to be in those lanes. And hopefully this helps improve awareness and safety.
Absolutely.
So those all deal with some of our local traffic issues. And we wanted to turn and talk for just a minute about some of the regional work that we're doing. So you sit as the city's representative on RCTC. Could you tell us we love acronyms, right? What is RCTC? What do they do?
RCTC is the Riverside County Transportation Commission. There are 34 members, one representative from each city and in the county, and then one representative, the supervisors, the Riverside County supervisors, and then a non-voting member, which is a member of Caltrans, usually the District 8 director. And RCTC is in charge of dispersing and federal and state funding that comes from the state in order to build arterials, to construct different projects within the entire county, usually based on Measure A, which was a tax, 1 cent sales tax that was passed passed back in the 80s and then redone again. I think it expires, I forget what year, but so yeah, they're responsible for the county's portion. However, RCTC is a self-help county, where Riverside County is a self-help county, which means that the state has decided that there'll be no more roads, there'll be no more, capacity-inducing or vehicle miles traveled inducing travel. Therefore, it's kind of fallen on the residents of Riverside County to fund these programs. Well, it takes billions to build freeway improvements, and in order to do so, we have toll lanes. And I know people hate them. They think that they're the worst thing, and I'm not happy about them either. However, without them, we would not have any improvements. So RCTC has spent a lot of money, a lot of taxpayer money on improvements, not just toll lanes. That auxiliary lane that I talked about earlier on the 91, that was funded primarily by excess toll revenue. They paid for a large portion of Foothill Parkway. That project wouldn't have happened. And there's probably some people that probably wouldn't have wanted it to happen, but it does move traffic to the city. It was an arterial that was always planned. And they've contributed to the Ontario Undercrossing project that we're hoping to get kicked off pretty soon, hopefully. And they work throughout the county.
Amazing work, huge workload, and quite the mandate there. So when it comes to regional transportation issues, you're obviously well informed about them, and as the voting member on the RCTC commission, you see a lot of the bigger trends. So what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that we have as a region when it comes to transportation, and what do you see as some of those solutions to those challenges?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the next project that RCTC is going to be doing is the southern extension to the toll lanes. And I normally wouldn't be, super happy about a new toll lane. However, what this will do is this will eliminate the bottleneck that you see with the lane drops that are at Cajalco, which that backup that literally backs up halfway into Corona and forces people onto city streets.
Sometimes almost to the 91.
Absolutely. Backs up.
It's incredible.
It backs up, and those toll prices are based on how busy the toll lanes are. And I think that's
this is a great point. So most people don't understand this point. And I'll say it from the layperson. Okay. You think, when I see that the price is really expensive, it must mean that I'm going to save a lot of time with the toll lane. True, not true?
That is not true. In fact, the city has been trying to help pass a law at the state level called Truth in Tolling, which would basically show people what they're buying, that how much time they would save. And Jacob, to your point, if the higher the toll rate, it means the more congested the toll lanes are. So that rate is to ensure that the toll lanes move. The toll lanes are very busy. If you see a $14 toll going southbound at Cajalco, that means it's not moving, and you should probably stay in the general purpose lanes. But the problem is that most people don't understand that. They're just trying to get home. They're trying to get home to the family. They're trying to get home to, watch their kids' baseball game or a soccer game, or, get home to just have dinner with their wife or their husband. And they see that as an emotional purchase, one that's grounded in reality. And the reality is that $14 doesn't mean you're going to get through too much faster. In fact, I think that, all the toll agencies throughout the state should tell people what they're buying.
Yeah. And for the record, for those that are listening, Council Member Speake is the advocate for truth in tolling. And this is really one of your passion projects to try to improve that, not just here, but throughout the state, because it is something that I think we generally think that the more we pay, the better the outcome it must be. And that must mean that tolling is really going to speed us through. Thank you for advocating on behalf of all of us for that. So what are some of the key freeway improvements that you're advocating for now? What can residents expect to see in terms of your work with RCTC and the big projects that are in the pipeline?
So like I said, the biggest one is probably the southern extension to the toll lanes. Like I said, that'll be a real game changer for residents that are driving, not just that originate here in the city, but to drive through the city. The other ones are the auxiliary lanes that Caltrans has taken on. There'll be auxiliary lane, new one between Old Temescal and Ontario, which will provide some breathing room for folks. And I always tell people, if you have a left-hand exit on anything, so a left-hand, you're getting out of a toll lane, you're getting out of a carpool lane, the standard is to have an extra lane. You need elbow room because you're displacing someone needs somewhere to go. So advocated with Assemblymember Speake, and Caltrans and RCTC to install an auxiliary lane from Old Temescal to Ontario, which will provide some breathing room there because people are exiting the toll lane to get out. And then we're working on eliminating the lane drop on the right side, so the number one side. So that will actually, instead of having two lane drops, it'll just be one for a while until the Southern Extension project is done. I know that RCTD, that's Riverside County Transportation Department, they are very close to starting construction of the Temescal Canyon widening. Even though the majority of it is not in the city, majority of it is in the county, it's a bane for folks that live in Dos Lagos or traveling to the crossings or Dos Lagos for shopping. I always joke that lane was first paved in 1927, and in 2027 it may be improved to 4 lanes. So really excited about that project, really excited about the Ontario Undercrossing project. There is the 91-241 connection. That is a tolled connection between the 241 toll lanes to the 91. That project will be starting in 2027 or 2026, and we'll go through 2028. And what that does is that, if you've ever been on the 241 coming back from, Orange County, and you hit the Windy Ridge toll station and you kind of just park and frustratingly watch people cut in front of you.
At home right now, there's a lot of people nodding. I know exactly where he's talking
and
about.
They put up those lane dividers, and people still wait to the last second. But this will make a direct toll connection between the 241 and the 91. So it'll pull some cars off the lane. And I tell people all the time, look, the toll lanes are capacity. You don't have to take them. Yes, it's a pain in the butt, and yes, it's infuriating to see someone drive past you at freeway speed while you're crawling. But it does take those cars out of the general purpose lane and buy us some more time until there's other modes of transportation. More trains and more buses, and but I would say that the state in general is really discouraging people in their cars. And the problem is that transportation will never move as many, alternative modes of transportation will never move people as fast as you getting in your car and driving somewhere.
Straight from point A to your personal point B.
Yeah. There is nothing. However, that's why live, work, Corona. We want people to live, work, play here in Corona.
So, Councilmember, beyond just safety, which we've talked about, what are some of the other goals that you're hoping to achieve with the lane reductions and the reinvestment in 6th Street?
The most important part of that is that lane reduction is going to do. We talked a little bit about encouraging investment downtown and how it's going to encourage investment downtown. However, it's going to discourage people that just want to drive through our town. It's been one of those things where I think this leftover idea that 6th Street used to be the 91, and I don't want people to drive on instead of use 6th Street as a bypass. We want there to be a destination for people to go to, because when you talk about transportation, it really, the state and other people like to talk about each one of these things as separate, right? So transportation, economic development, and housing, well, they're all the same person. I can shop, I can drive, and I have to have a place to go, and I have to have a job. But if you can weave them all together and capture them all together, it's a unique opportunity. So if we're slowing people down in that area for safety, is really important. But it's the experience. It's that push to have people there purposefully. They're not just driving through our town. And yeah, they could stop and get gas, and I certainly want people to do that. But I don't want them to drive through 6th Street. I don't want them to drive through the middle of the circle on their way to somewhere else. Now, I want there to be a destination. I think that we're being purposeful about how we're designing downtown, how we're curating downtown. And I think this lane reduction is the perfect catalyst for it. And like I think I said earlier about it being showing people that want to invest that the city's willing to invest, not just in the dollars to repaint. And yes, doing some restriping it's just paint, but at the same time, there's a purpose for it. And I know that, and trust me, I feel the expectation, I feel the pain. I think I was giving the rest of the council and the city manager, updates every few days about how many minutes it would take me to drive from here to there.
True story. Councilmember, you did go and time it. I think you have a pretty large sample size now of the total travel time between point A and point B, and you yourself were able to prove out that it was not, in fact, a drastic reduction for most people. You can still get to where you need to go at a safe speed.
Yeah, even if you were, mandating yourself to drive down 6th Street, and which is what I did. I drove before. I drove almost every single day after, every morning and every afternoon, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. My wife it was a joke, because she would go, "Where are you going?" I go, "To drive 6th Street." And she said, "If I didn't know what you were doing, I would be a little more suspicious, but you just keep driving it." And I said, yeah, because I know that we're doing traffic studies, and I have every faith in Public Works to come back with great things, but I wanted to be able to answer people and have that feeling myself.
Based on personal experience.
Personal experience, and everybody's experience is different. And I'm not discounting, there are people that have had, substantial, waits in order to get through, and I'm not, discounting that at all. But, I wanted to truth it myself and drive it through many, many, many times, which I have. And I think in the end, when there is something there for people to stop and go to, they're going to go, that's it. That's what they were trying to do. And I'm, like I said, I can't wait for it. And I know you feel my
passion for it.
Yes, there you go. My passion, not just for transportation, but my passion for downtown and that lean, that natural lean to come downtown. And the entire council feels it. I know that certainly city management feels it and staff feels it. And we're just looking forward to, seeing that beautiful pavement lead right to where we want people to go.
And that major leap forward, we're going to start seeing in 2025, and we're so excited. And in terms of impact on local businesses, what have you heard as you've talked to business owners in the downtown along 6th Street?
It's one thing I love about Coronans, that we care about our fellow businesses, we care about our fellow residents, and they'll say, yeah, but Wes, it's going to take forever to get through there. And what about the businesses? And what about this? And what about that? And I said, you know what? You're right. So the mayor went on one side of one side of 6th Street. I went on the other side of 6th Street, and we walked. And we, unbeknownst to each other, what we were doing, I think we might have crossed over one business. But to a T, every single business owner we talked to was really excited about it. And yeah, they saw the traffic, but at the same time, they saw additional parking opportunities. There's folks that are, landlocked that don't have a traditional parking lot, which is frankly, we want downtown to be like it was, back before urban renewal, where you could just pull up in front of or you could, park somewhere and walk to it. And I think Dilver, which owns DBZ Records over on 6th Street, has remarked during the State of the City that he loved it. People can actually pull up in front and park. The Carnicia Del Rey, one of my favorite places to go get a cut of steak. You want to get the best carne asada in town, it's there. It's orange marinade. I didn't tell the secret, but it's really good. And they have a small parking lot that they share with an automotive and a gas station. And sometimes you can't find parking, or you got to park behind. Pull right up in front now.
As somebody, council member that's worked with you for 5 years, for everyone listening, I can attest that you have been relentless in your advocacy for transportation. And for people that aren't watching, they're listening, all of the projects that you just rattled off, you didn't use any notes. So it's another testament to the fact that you are deeply into the details on all of these things, and all of the opportunities that we can take advantage of. And even though traffic continues to be a problem, and we know it's not going to go away, we could do everything perfectly today, and due to build out in the surrounding region, all of that traffic flows through our community. We are grateful for all of your work to continue to do everything possible to try to help Coronans get around better. So thank you for your time and for joining me today.
Thank you.
Joining me today is Keegan Olds, CIP Supervisor for the Streets and Stormwater section of our Capital Improvement Projects Division in the city. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So, Keegan, to help listeners get to know a little bit more about you, can you tell us about what you do for the city and just the kind of background that you need to work in this space?
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Keegan Olds. I'm the CIP Supervisor, which is our principal engineer equivalent at the city for the Streets and Stormwater Engineering section. I'm also interim CIP Manager, overseeing the entirety of the engineering sections for Public Works right now. But my background, I actually come from a background from the state of Arizona, 8 years with the Arizona Department of Transportation. Spent a few years with the city of Huntington Beach, actually, prior to coming here. So I have almost about 12 years of experience at varying levels of engineering. I'm a registered professional engineer, both in the states of Arizona and California. So that's kind of the background I have to come up to the principal level, a mixture of design and construction experience, managing projects at all levels. I oversee a staff of about 7 members right now, specifically in streets and stormwater. And that group of associates, senior and assistant engineers, helps me oversee our capital improvement program for streets and stormwater.
So Keegan, when we talk about the condition of our roads, you'll oftentimes hear, because cities love acronyms, government loves acronyms, we talk about a PCI. And for people that aren't familiar with that, can you tell us what is a PCI and what does it tell us about the streets in Corona?
Sure, yeah. So PCI is your Pavement Condition Index. So what that tells you, it's a scale from 0 to 100, of course, from very bad or failing to very good. And that measures the condition of the roadway itself. So what that does is it allows us to track and determine exactly what kind of treatment types, what streets are in need of treatment or potentially repair or rebuilding. And that all factors into our models for how we structure our paving program.
So very precise. That gives us a lot of information. So when it comes to assessing our roads on an annual basis, can you talk a little bit about how we assess street conditions, and what do we do with the data that we collect?
Sure. Yeah. So we assess our street conditions to feed into our model. We actually use a program called Street Saver. So what we do is we update the condition of the pavement by surveying the streets. And that's done through the different kinds of degradation and aging that the pavement goes through. And by updating that model, that data continuously, you're able to assess the conditions of the pavement and build future projects based off of that. And that all feeds into our pavement management plan and which streets in every zone that we've divided it into need certain treatment type.
And how many zones in the city?
There are 10 zones that we've established.
And when we go out to do that assessment, what kind of, is there instruments? What kind of a...
Yes. Yeah. So we have a consultant on board that assesses that. It's a combination of instruments that go ahead and assess the actual ride quality of the pavement. So things like the segregation of the aggregate or cracks or potholes can...
It actually captures like bumps in the road, you could say.
Exactly. Yeah. Bumps, dips, that sort of thing. But also there's a visual aspect to it because when pavement is in good to very good quality, a lot of that is more based off of like the visual aspect of how things are aging. I hesitate to say failing, but aging, right? Different types of cracking, different types of, like I said, aggregate moving around, that sort of thing. It all feeds into that assessment of the pavement condition.
So Keegan, in terms of PCI ratings, how do our roads compare relative to other cities regionally and nationally? We get a lot of feedback from people, and they, the roads can never be too smooth or too good for people. But how do we stack up in Corona relative to some of our neighbors?
Regionally, our partners and as a whole, the Inland Empire is in the 60s for a PCI rating, and our city, after the most recent paving project finishes, will be at a PCI of 74. We're already beating our neighbors regionally as the Inland Empire area and actually statewide as well. But we're going to continue to maintain above that quality over the next decade.
That's fantastic. One of the most visual things that people see in Corona when they're moving about town is what their street looks like. I've noticed a lot of positive feedback in the city over the last 6 months as the entire downtown has seen some repaving, which at least for some of our long-term residents, I've been told, is the first time they, in recent memory, remember a lot of those older streets in our downtown getting a lot of attention. So it just looks fantastic. So Keegan, you mentioned a little bit earlier in talking about our pavement condition index for the city that we have a 10-year pavement management plan, something that's new to the city. Can you talk a little bit about what a pavement management plan does?
Yeah. So pavement management plan is entirely data-driven. So using the assessments that are completed to continuously update the condition of the streets as a whole within the city, we did an initial assessment which developed that 10-year paving plan, starting with the zone as an average. These are divided geographically throughout the city into 10 zones of roughly equal area. And we'll be starting with the zone, we call it Zone 1. It's on the east side of the city, and addressing the streets in most need of rehabilitation. There's also, as part of that plan, you also want to maintain streets that are in good quality. So a portion of our paving projects do go towards maintaining roads that are in satisfactory or good condition, bringing those back into that very good condition too. So it's a combination of reconstruction, resurfacing, and stretching our dollars the best that we possibly can to address as much of each zone as possible. And what that also does is this zone-based system, instead of having roads that are treated here and there, scattered throughout the city, maybe a chunk here, a chunk there, that increases costs for the contractor, for the city by extension, in doing those projects because you have to mobilize to different areas. By having geographically concise zones for addressing these paving, we can stretch our dollars even more by centralizing. It reduces the mobilization costs, the equipment costs for the contractors, thereby saving dollars for our residents.
So the pavement management plan helps us to reduce costs. It ensures a more consistent experience around the city. And as always, it utilizes data to drive where we repair streets rather than just on who complains the most.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can put it that way. I mean, I would say honestly, the number one concern that we get, and there's a number, of course, we address so many different things within the city, but one of the things that we get the calls most about, as you've said, is when is my street going to get paved? And part of developing this plan, yes, it reduces mobilization costs, it increases our efficiency and whatnot, but it also lets us be clear to the residents when your streets are going to get paved. So it's not about who calls in and complains the most or is concerned about their area. We can effectively address the streets and communicate when you are going to see paving in your area on a 10-year basis. And what the models do also allow us to know exactly which streets are going to be selected, because not all streets are addressed. We do stretch our dollars as much as possible, and we're hoping to see more efficiency and stretch that even further. But so we can communicate to residents, to future projects, developers, private entities, utilities especially, to let them know when things are going to get paved, to get work done before the paving comes in so we can come in after you, and really make sure things are efficient and maintainable for all parties.
I love it. That really speaks to the why of the reason behind why that plan was developed. And I'll tell you, more often than not, when people are able to see that, yes, we haven't forgot about your street, there is a plan, your paving, your pavement maintenance is coming up here in the next year or 2 or 3, whatever the date is, it gives them something to look forward to, and it reminds them that the city is on top of this issue and it's not going to be forgotten forever.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have our streets maintenance team. I always have to give a shout out to them as well. So for any emergent issues, you have a pothole that's appearing unexpectedly, a utility issue, that sort of thing. We do have the capabilities to go after those emergent issues within the city to go ahead and handle those, because of course not everything is going to age or degrade at the same rate. So when bad things happen, we're there to address them and make sure that we can keep things safe and usable for our residents until the actual resurfacing or rehabilitation project comes in.
That's great. And I think that's an important note. Most people probably wouldn't know that within the city, within the CIP group, our CIP staff, you focus on the bigger, major rehabilitation projects, but we have a different division in the city, the streets maintenance team, and they go out and then take care of those day-to-day issues, whether there's debris that's on the road, filling potholes. So they take care of that day-to-day maintenance and operations as well. So you've talked about what the plan does, why we did it, and some of the benefits for it. So I think people might be interested to know, how much do we spend on street maintenance annually in the city of Corona?
Yeah, so as far as the projects go, there's a combination of 2 funds, both regionally and through the gas tax that we use. So right now, I could tell you the upcoming project, say Zone 1, is about $12.5 million. That's $10 million from those funds. And then as discussed as part of the pavement management plan, City Council has agreed to extend another $2.5 million. So $12.5 million total. That number does rise over the 10-year period, both because of inflation and additional funding going into our funding sources, just naturally over that time period. But you could say about $12.5 million for the projects. And then again, a streets maintenance division that actually maintains issues ongoing has another budget as well, I believe around $1 million.
Okay, $12 million annually. And I think most people would agree, money well spent. Absolutely. So what kinds of maintenance do we do for streets? Sometimes we say that it's a repaving project, but in fact, we're not always doing a traditional repave. There are different levels of maintenance. Can you talk about sort of the major categories of maintenance that we do to our streets?
Of course, yeah. So this harkens back kind of to that PCI rating, right? So we do want to preserve streets that are in good condition and bring that back up to the very good condition. And so the way you do your pavement preservation in that respect is by doing, say, like a slurry seal. Treatment that puts a fine layer of material on top to preserve that good quality condition pavement underneath. There may be some cracking or whatnot, so we also will do crack sealing before we do the seal. So then that's a combination of that preservation of good material. And then, of course, coming down from there, you start to go into your resurfacing. That can go at different depths depending on the need for resurfacing. The worse condition that it is in, the deeper we will go to resurface, up to 3 or 4 inches. Also depends on the type of street, of course. And then last but not least, if something's in poor condition, of course, There may be like that foundational material failure, something like that, that's causing more larger issues, more potholing, that sort of thing. Then we go ahead and do a full reconstruction.
And that's where we remove all of the asphalt and you get right down to the base and you recompact the gravel and build up.
Right, yes. Potentially replace something that's going to wildly depend on the actual issue experienced. But yes, it goes all the way down.
So on the streets in the downtown with the pavement management maintenance that was done there, we did a combination of slurry seals, some crack sealing, that grind and overlay where, as you mentioned, you remove maybe a couple of inches of the asphalt and replace it, as well as in some areas, some full reconstruction. Tell me this is a fun fact that I get asked about a lot. If you're going up Main Street in Corona, as well as some of our older streets, people refer to this sort of a crown on the street where you get a high point in the middle and then it begins to slope more along the edges. Why does that happen? And why don't we replace those streets sooner than later?
Sure. So there's a combination of reasons, but the main reason that roadways are crowned is for drainage. So to remove the water from the traveled way, the street itself, and put it into that curb and gutter, transmit it down into our storm drains, and get it out of the way. In those older sections, those are crowned higher because the storm drain standards were probably not the same as we do now. And so conveying that water away was more of a priority for them. Whereas, on newer sections, you'll see that crown is much less steep and there's an efficient storm drain that's installed there. Now, we do have our storm drain projects where we can address some of these older areas that do flood or deficient areas or under capacity to move forward in the future and keep things out of the way. As far as what it takes to replace those, as you can imagine, having a roadway that's heavily crowned is much more difficult. You'd have to do more of a reconstruction to remove that crown, right? It goes all the way down to the the foundational subgrade layer, and you'd have to rebuild that entire section to address that. So what we were doing is preserving the roadway in its existing condition as far as the pavement management project goes. Anything more than that would have to be a larger, more specific project tied to that area.
So very extensive project in order to undertake a removal of that crown.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have a larger expansion. I think of it like a widening of a street, right? It's a much larger effort than just the pavement preservation process. You would be impacting residents and traffic significantly more for a significantly longer period of time in that specific area. Whereas, your grind and overlay, your slurry seals, we're in and out of that area in a matter of weeks at most versus what would be months of construction. And of course, the financial impact is a completely different story. Once you start doing a project of that scale, you have to address every aspect of that.
You mentioned earlier that one of the questions that we get often from people is, when will my street be paved next? So for those that are listening, where can people go now to find out the answer to that question of when will my street get done?
Yeah, so we are posting on the Public Works section of the city website, the updated zones. It should be updated soon if it's not there already, but it will outline exactly the fiscal years of when the projects are slated to be paved. So as an example, Zone 1, once we have the funding at the turn of the fiscal year, and that's in the end of June, early July, we will be advertising that project because my staff is actually doing the behind-the-scenes engineering work right now to get that project ready. And then once that regional funding is available, then we will advertise and get ready to start paving Zone 1.
So a lot of people are interested in what's coming in the future. Can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the key road projects that we have in the next couple of years in Corona?
Sure, yeah. So we have a number of roadway projects in design right now, or the planning stages, outside of our normal just pavement preservation projects. That includes Ontario at I-15, which is a project that's in partnership with our regional partners, RCTC, as well as Caltrans and the state at I-15.
And is that going to be just a repave? Are we widening? What are we doing there?
We will be widening underneath I-15 at Ontario. That pinch point that's there. So like I said, that is in design. There's also Ontario at Lincoln is another widening project along with, which is actually a complete streets project. We're adding in infrastructure for active transportation, pedestrians, bicyclists, and landscaped medians is another common request to beautify the area. It also can aid in stormwater capture and fighting off that heat island effect. On the flip side of that, of course, is our Downtown Revitalization, the changes to 6th Street. My team is also overseeing the engineering side of things of that, making those improvements as part of the Downtown Revitalization plan, the landscape medians, the additional parking to support our overall plan for what we're doing in revitalizing downtown. So we also have a widening project on Magnolia, east of I-15, which will include some bridge widening. So these are projects that we do explore, and there are future projects in planning stages. Other projects that are more long-term, that we could hit on as well. Not just a roadway project, but bridge projects. We're looking at future grade separations, of course, just like McKinley, probably performed in a different manner. There's all sorts of different ways to address these grade separations. So we're constantly looking at new ways of connectivity, of improving the area, the city for residents and businesses and users, visitors, and just a wide expanse of different projects.
I love it. I can't wait to see a lot of those projects come to fruition over the next couple of years. I know your team's working hard at those. Last question. Traffic. We said we talk about transportation, streets, and traffic. And as we survey our residents year after year, one of the number one concerns they have is traffic congestion. And obviously our city's built out. Our road system is in place, so there is limitations on what we can do. But I wanted, if you would, to just have you take a minute to talk about some exciting new developments that are underway over the next year as we begin to incorporate artificial intelligence into managing dynamically our traffic signals.
Yes, absolutely. So, of course, I do need to touch upon our traffic engineering team. They do fantastic work.
Shout out to traffic engineering. You guys are awesome.
Yes, they do. They are very close partners in achieving all of these projects, both from planning all the way through construction. Our traffic engineering team has a project that's recently been awarded. It's our traffic signal optimization project is the title of it, but it is to incorporate and involve those AI technologies at major intersections that are linked throughout the city to improve the functionality of those signals, gather data on the fly, and make more real-time decisions and changes to how those signals operate and keep traffic flowing within the city.
One of my favorite things, I think every person listening has had that moment where you're driving down the street and you'll see that lone car pull up to an intersection and it triggers the signal for an entire slew of cars that are going through. And that could be a 90-second cycle, a minute 20 cycle, and you're sitting there waiting and waiting. AI with this traffic signal optimization project will provide us the ability to dynamically retime that signal to keep people moving faster and reduce our travel time across the city. So excited to see that happen. There's only a few cities across the country that are doing that, but the early indicators from the data coming back is that it can significantly reduce our travel time. As I talk to residents about this, the one thing I remind them is that while we can't control the 91 freeway or the 15, as long as you live, work, and shop in Corona, we can help you get around a lot faster. So stay in the city, and we'll try to make your experience a better one.
Absolutely. And we're always working with our regional partners, too, to improve efficiencies and support their efforts to improve congestion and traffic on our adjacent freeways.
Keegan, a lot of our transportation, traffic, and streets issues that we talked about today are really focused on our residents getting around in vehicles. But there is another way that people get around town, and that's through our active transportation systems, which is really talking about bicycles. Can you just briefly tell us a little bit about what's coming up with our bicycle master plan for the city of Corona?
Yeah, absolutely. A member of my team is managing the bicycle master plan update. We're partnering with a consultant to produce an update that addresses our active transportation needs within the city. And that will generate, after engaging, of course, with the public, with existing committees and safety groups, to generate the overall outlook for bicycle safety and bicycle master planning within the city. And that'll generate a slate of projects for us to implement for hopefully decades to come.
So excited to see that. Keegan, it's great what you do. We're glad you're here serving our residents in the city. And it's always enlightening to visit with you. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me today.